Thank you, everyone. Oh, that's quite echoey. Welcome to the Ordinary Meeting of Council for the 10th of July 2024. Nala Kadich Wajak Mort, Kayan Karak Nija Walilat Budja. We're Jinang Wajak Kadijin, we're Nyiting Bula Yaya. We acknowledge the Wajak people as the traditional owners of the Greater Fremantle Walilat area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. The meeting is being recorded and streamed live online. While all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question may be captured in the recording. Councillor Fidel Kamada is on leave of absence, but I believe everyone else is here. Councillor Thompson is requesting a leave of absence from the 22nd of July to the 27th of July inclusive. So I'll have someone move that. Councillor Sullivan, seconded by Councillor Lang. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Are there any other applications for leave of absence? No. Are there any disclosures of interest by members in relation to tonight's agenda? No. All right. So responses to previous public questions taken on notice are published in the minutes from the 26th of June. That takes us to public question time. For those who've been here before, you'll know this, but for those who haven't, we effectively take public questions in two different ways. General questions can be asked at the beginning of the meeting, and if you prefer to ask your question or make your statement at the beginning of the meeting, that's also fine. We will also give an opportunity, particularly on the planning items, for you to speak just prior to that item. And that allows us to ask you any questions and elected members to sort of interact with you about what you're saying. So it's up to you. If you're on a planning item and you want to speak in the general section of the meeting, you're absolutely welcome to. But otherwise, we'll give you an opportunity just before we come to your item. So for general matters, I'll start with Paul Jones. You've got 3 minutes to speak and you'll hear a little alarm go, which is your signal to wrap up. On the microphone down.
On-off button.
That's brilliant.
Thanks,
Thank you, Paul.
Look, thank you, councillors. I'm here to report or ask questions about an issue that was curiously raised 12 months ago, which is about flooding in Johanna Street. There's been repeated community requests for action over many years, but at the moment we don't have any engineering solutions installed or budgeted. Flooding occurs at high tide from river outfall ply. There is only one storm drain outlet to the river, and there are no soak wells. So every high tide, the street floods. This is creating ongoing damage to the property and reducing access to homes during the flooding events. There is great high anxiety in the neighbourhood, and even today I received up to 8 emails about this, supporting this presentation. It's gone on too long. But I must say I've had great support from our local councillor, Ingrid, and from Kevin Rowe, one of your officers. He has reported that the council has purchased a non-return valve and it's on the way from Sweden. We're looking forward to that being installed. In addition, there is a solution either for stormwater drains, it's for bubblers to collect the water in the street or install soak wells. At the moment, the stormwater depth is up to 600 mil outside my property. That water depth, if it was on my property, I'd be required to have a pool fence, which is quite ironic. It is just, there's a lot of people who drive there for football training, etc. People walking their dogs. People cannot actually get down the street or into their properties. Cars have been damaged, insurance claims have been made, and this is going on and on. I'm constructing a dwelling there at the moment, and it's really reduced access for the tradespeople to get on site. As I said, I presented this 12 months ago. I'm seeing some action, but I really need the wheels to keep moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. And I might go to Ryan Abbott, who is our Acting Director of Infrastructure, but also the subject matter expert on this area. So I'll hand over to you, Ryan, if you've got any further comment.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. As Mr. Jones touched on, we do have an active project here designing a solution. It is I suppose we have an associated project next door with Prawn Bay, so we are looking at an integrated drainage solution which talks to the Prawn Bay project as well. That's a process which is ongoing at the moment. As Mr. Jones touched on, we do have a one-way valve on order as well. I actually understand that arrived in Australia today, so as soon as we get favourable conditions, that will be installed. We've also submitted 2 grant submissions for constructing the longer term solution. The announcement of both of those has actually been delayed, so I've now been advised that will be at some point in August. So once we've found out about those grant submissions, and even if we don't have success on those, we'll come back to the community and engage with them at some point in August and September on that sort of longer term solution.
Thank you. Okay, on general matters and the budget, Ian Kerr.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say I was saddened, but unfortunately not surprised, to see the City of Fremantle place the responsibility for deferral of the proposed underground power charges on the community rather than acknowledging and accepting responsibility for its failures. What is needed is not, and I quote, to give ratepayers in South Fremantle and City South more time to understand the benefits of underground power, but for City of Fremantle to understand that up to $1,000 a year for 7 years, equivalent to a 40% increase in rates, is not a trivial amount that ratepayers can just plug out of their wallets at a moment's notice. The absence of answers to my first 3 questions at the council meeting of 26th of June, including when did City of Fremantle assess community support for underground power in the South Fremantle City South area, appears to demonstrate a disregard for the people of Fremantle. Western Power guidelines emphasise the need to ensure community support for underground power projects at the stage of or soon after signing the Memorandum of Understanding. But City of Fremantle only started communication with the community about 10 months after signing the MOU, and mainly after the proposed charges were approved for advertising. City of Fremantle was apparently happy to start charging people without ensuring that there is that community support. Tonight's agenda item on the 24-25 budget states that the purpose of the advertising was to give residents reasonable notice of the estimated charge prior to issuing charge with rates notices. Did City of Fremantle really consider that 2 months was reasonable notice for a requirement to pay nearly $1,000, not just for 1 year, but for 7 years? The responses to my questions of the 26th of June do not provide substantial, or in most cases any, answers to the questions that I asked. So I ask, and you'll probably take this as a rhetorical question, why is it that responses to questions asked by myself and others at council meetings so often fail to provide answers to the substance of the question? Now here's a real question, and I don't expect an answer on the fly. But now that it has 12 months to work on the project with the deferral of the charges, will the City of Fremantle establish a ratepayer reference group to ensure that A, the affected community is fully informed, and B, community concerns are identified and addressed before any further decisions or commitments, including signing a contract with Western Power, are made? Thank you.
Thank you. So I took the last point as the question, which we'll, I think, take on notice. Were there any other points that we... Okay. All right. Thanks. So we'll take that on notice. Again, general business, Leonie Lundy.
Good evening. Thank you. Is it correct that the Mayor and the CEO of the City of Fremantle will be travelling to the US in September this year to visit US shipyards and other places and persons relevant to the AUKUS Defence and Security Pact between Australia, the US and UK? If so, whose initiative is this? What is the stated objective and expected benefit to the city? What is the estimated cost per traveller delegate? And where are the funds coming from to cover this trip? I have a second question. I'm not sure if I should proceed with that or wait.
Yeah, please proceed.
Question 2. In reference to the management of low-level nuclear waste on Garden Island, Meandip in Cockburn Sound from the US and UK nuclear-powered submarines on rotation under AUKUS SRF West as of 2027, and in light of the recent exposure by the Medical Association for Prevention of War, MAPW Australia, that one, the Australian Submarine Agency has misled the community and stakeholders, including the Perth Southwest Metropolitan Alliance, in its assertion, I quote, the low-level radioactive waste management activities are similar to those that occur in over 100 locations nationwide, including hospitals, science facilities, and universities. On the contrary, I again quote, the low-level waste generated by processes maintaining a nuclear reactor has a half-life that is very different, hence the need for a repository. Whereas the vast majority of nuclear waste from hospitals is very short-lived waste or very low-level waste, both of which are disposed of in landfill after a decay period. Similarly, the amount held by universities and science facilities is negligible. And 3, there is no final disposal site selected, determined, and no guarantee one will be found. And in that case, the storage facility on Garden Island will then become the de facto disposal facility. So, will Fremantle Council publicly agree to immediately reconsider its support for a controlled industrial facility on Garden Island to manage and store US and UK nuclear-powered submarine that is foreign, low-level waste, as indicated in the PSWMA's recent submission to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works for Submarine Rotational Force West Priority Works at HMAS Stirling. And I presume you have all received the attached documentations to the email that went through earlier with those supporting documentations.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to the CEO.
As the Mayor and myself have a conflict of interest in the question, I'll pass the question to the Director of City Business for a response.
Through the Mayor, I've got some further detail that hopefully covers off your question. So the mayors and CEOs from the 6 local governments from the Perth South West Metropolitan Alliance will be attending meetings in the US in September. That's correct, and that's in preparation for the deployment of US submarines in 2027. We acknowledge that some members of the community may have concerns about the AUKUS program. The Alliance, which includes the councils, which will most likely be affected by that AUKUS program, are undertaking their due diligence on what this means for our local communities, the local economy, and our local environment. And we'd like to fully understand the implications of that federal government decision. The delegation will focus on gaining a better understanding of emergency management procedures related to the presence of submarines, as well as understanding how best to support incoming personnel and their families associated with the program. The Alliance was strongly encouraged by the Australian Submarine Agency to undertake the delegation, and they are currently considering providing additional financial support for the delegation. The Alliance has also received significant support for planning and logistics of the 12-day mission from the US Consul's office in WA. The remaining costs will be covered by the Alliance themselves, mainly the underspend accumulated during the COVID-19 pandemic, which ensures no additional funding will be required from councils to fund the delegation. The group will also take the opportunity to meet with business groups involved in the development of and maintenance of the Virginia-class submarines. We'll be discussing issues such as homelessness and urban development with some of our counterparts in the US. The cost for the City of Fremantle Mayor and the CEO to attend the delegation is approximately $14,100 each, and that is being paid for by the Alliance. If you have any further questions or queries on the delegation, we'd highly recommend getting in touch directly with the Alliance themselves.
Thank you. Okay. On the budget, that I'm guessing in general business, Mark Woodcock. And Mark, we were sorry to hear of the passing of your father, quite a surf club legend.
Good evening. I have my questions on notice, so would you like me to bring them forward?
If you can also read them out so that they're
sure.
sort of transparent for the people listening in online.
On the 5th of February 2024, I asked about the latest cost of the King Square project. Council's response was to see the ordinary minutes of the 24th of August 2022. My question tonight is, can the council inform the ratepayers how much has been spent since August 22 minutes were released on the total project-related costs for the King Square project? Question 2, what are the total costs for the long ongoing South Beach toilet project? What steps have been taken to ensure that the disastrous cost overruns for King Square project aren't going to be repeated at the South Beach toilet project? And question 3, is the RRG being wound up? And if so, what are the city's obligations to this entity and what expenses have been budgeted for in the 2024-25 budget?
Thanks. I'll go to the CEO for comment on any of those.
Thank you, through the chair. Costs on the WCC project since August 22 are unknown at this time, so the reality is I'd have to go check that out, although the project was complete at that point and there was a report advising that was the case and what the costs were. The cost for the South Beach toilet, it's a fixed price contract has been put in place for that with a contingency element to it already, so that will remain at that cost. And I think that's probably at the moment about $2.6 million for the building itself. There will be a second tender provided, which will allow for landscape works to go on around that once that's completed as well. At the moment, the City of Fremantle, with its partner, the City of Melville, is undertaking a due diligence assessment of the RRG project group and in discussion with the current landlord of that facility as well to see what and how that version of waste management will occur into the future. That report is not concluded at this time.
Okay. In general business, we also have Elizabeth Megros.
Good evening, everyone. All my questions answered. Contrary to the words in your vision statements, your answers provided to questions make me as a ratepayer feel neither respected nor included and certainly not celebrated. It is noted that the word rhetorical has become a much used label in your response repertoire. I want to be very clear. I want the answer to my question that is true and correct and not simply an empty claim of having responded to it. If you are unwilling or cannot provide a true answer, don't bother giving a response. My questions in relation to Victoria Hall, a public resource that should have been used extensively by the community had it been managed and promoted properly, remain without answers. When will you answer them? 2. Given my question was about the present and past locations, not the future of fossil fuel gas and sponsorship advertising, when will you answer it? 3. Without the cost and benefit analysis, how have you arrived at what is a reasonable financial investment into a destination marketing campaign that employs 4 to 5 people and commits every ratepayer to contribute, and not just the businesses that are direct beneficiaries? Is the clip, this is Fremantle, the pinnacle of the investment into the destination marketing campaign? Although all ratepayers contribute to the above program, why does the working group only include people from the business community? Define what is meant by the sentiment, a resilient city that plans for the future and is empowered to take action. I mean, I could understand this statement in relation to Rafa or Keith, but what has changed? Has Fremantle not planned or taken action in the past? Number 5. For the following messages, all my questions answered, here to here, I want to thank you. State who commissioned them, who was contracted to install them, what was the total cost associated with them, how are they categorized, as are they public art or advertising, and was there a prior community engagement? Perhaps there should be one more visible message for the public. I want your trust. It's all about the truth. And by the way, I could not find the destination marketing line in the annual budget. Perhaps you could be more helpful and directive so we can find it. Thank you.
I think we'll take all of that on notice. Okay. Do we have that in writing? She'll email it. All right. And finally, in general business, we have John Dowson.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Madam Mayor, I've sent these in electronically and they're too long to read out. Would you mind if I just table them to be dealt with later?
No, you'll need to read them out. We've moved to very much saying that you need to read stuff out because it's not very transparent otherwise if people are sitting in the meeting. So I'll answer this and I'll start the 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Can I ask, because I want to deal with Fremantle Oval, can I ask that another Fremantle Society member read these out so that they have 3 minutes?
If someone else wants to speak in general business, that's fine.
Is that all right? So thank you. Can I ask Helen, when she, not now, but after I've spoken? So
I'll let you sort that out, but if you want to start your 3 minutes, thank you.
So my 3 minutes, I want to talk about Fremantle Oval, which is should be something to celebrate, but which is quite upsetting. Look, the process for Fremantle Oval seems to be backwards, and if you compare how, for example, the Fremantle Railway Station that project was dealt with by the state government. They showed an interest early on. They talked to people. The minister came down to Fremantle. She walked around with the Fremantle Society. We did a report for her. She investigated. She hired a very sympathetic architect. She put millions of dollars into the project. They did a very good job with the railway station. And they were so impressed with the job, they actually put a brochure out. And the brochure says in the first sentence, all work at Fremantle Railway Station is being carried out in accordance with an approved Heritage Conservation Plan. Now, this city has done everything backwards. The Heritage Conservation Plan was only just gone through council a few weeks ago, and you chose an architect who was the same one who rammed through the police complex building through JDAP. So you didn't choose a sympathetic architect. The conservation plan was so bad, you had to add another 50 pages were added, and it's still not a good conservation plan. The point is, you've done the whole project backwards. You did a Fremantle Redevelopment Oval Master Plan, 2022, and there's a picture out of it. And there's no mention of high-rise apartment buildings in your early master plan. There's nothing there at all about high-rise apartment blocks. But Madam Mayor, you've been to Canberra 3 times, taking drawings showing high-rise buildings, which have never been discussed with the community or even been passed by your own council. And this is just unbelievable. What you're putting to the government to raise money, it's great that you want to raise money, but what you're putting to the government are vastly obscene. 9-story blocks of flats and 8-story blocks, 50,000 square metres of apartments. 50,000 square metres of apartments. The priority of the master plan, which you just recently passed, the conservation plan, is the priorities are sport, community activities, heritage, public open space. Those are the priorities. And if you can fit a bit of accommodation in later, well, that's fine. But this focus on massive accommodation blocks is really upsetting. So the question I have is, why are you doing your planning backwards?
Thank you. Just to be clear, those are concept plans. The priorities remain actually as you articulated them. And if we can do something to try and address the housing crisis and to give people places to live in Fremantle, we absolutely will. But they're concept plans at this stage. They're not approved plans. I'll see if the Director for Planning wants to add anything to that in terms of the process or the Conservation Management Plan.
Thank you. Through the chair, we will be wrapping up the whole project with a council report over the next 6 to 8 weeks, where all the different parts of a project of this complexity will be tied together. The only other thing I would add is that we've had a conservation management plan in place for I think it was 1996, which stays in place until it's replaced by the new one. So we've never been working in the absence of conservation management guidance.
Thank you. And so still in general business, was it Helen? Did you want to? That's fine. Yeah.
Good evening. Fremantle Society questions on item C2407-10, adoption of the annual budget 2024-25. The city's annual budget and corporate plan references a long-term financial plan. However, in our view, woefully inadequate long-term financial plan linked to the budget on the city's web page is completely out of date, being 2015 to 2025. See the link to the long-term financial plan 2015 to 2025. There is again this year a total disconnect between the current annual budget and the long-term financial plan. When will this city's long-term financial plan be updated so Fremantle ratepayers can properly assess the financial implications of the 2024-2025 annual budget? There's a lot of echo here. Am I holding it incorrectly or?
I'm not sure why it's so echoey tonight, but if it's just put it slightly below your mouth, then it tends to echo a little bit less.
Okay. Why are funds for the maintenance of the Fremantle Town Hall predicated on the sale of Victoria Hall? This is robbing Peter to pay Paul. The city's track record for achieving budgeted capital expenditure amounts for which rates have been levied from Fremantle ratepayers has been appalling. This includes last year when the proposed capital expenditure budget started at 24 million and halved mid-year to 12 million and is currently now only 5 million for the 11 months to May 2024. Based on the city's track record, why does the city believe it can now meet the proposed capital expenditure budget target of 19 million? Are current capital projects being deliberately held back due to city's accumulation funds for the up-and-coming underground power upfront funding requirement to Western Power? Given the overall lack of capital expenditure for renewed assets in the past few years and high depreciation amounts and the city's consistently failing to respond to the question, it is being asked again, please, what is the asset sustainability ratio for the year ended 30th June 2024 and the budget year ending 30th June 2025? And why is it not meeting the city's policies? What is the average percentage salary increase awarded to the council staff, not change in total staff cost, for the year ended 30th June 2024 and for the budgeted year ending 30th June 2025, and if greater than CPI, why?
Thanks, Helen.
Thank
and
you.
Helen, sorry, can I just grab your surname again? I've just forgotten.
Sorry, Helen Cox, COX.
COX. Thanks, Helen. Right, I'll go to the Director of City Business for responses to any or all of those questions?
Through the mayor, we'll take the majority of them on notice. But generally, in response to the capital program, we acknowledge that we've delivered a third of the program to date. However, we've substantially progressed a number of the major projects within that program. This has included South Beach toilets, Fremantle Arts Centre, Creative Hub, Fremantle Public Golf Course, whilst also growing our reserve balance by about $6 million with the intent that we will have the capacity to continue to deliver on that program of projects. So I'll leave it at that.
Through the chair, I'll just make a comment on long-term financial plan. The current long-term financial plan provided on the website is out of date. I agree with that. During the current year budget process, we have actually redrafted the long-term financial plan with a intent to get that before council to adopt formally over the coming months. So that will be updated and brought forward very soon. Can also make a comment that the asset sustainability ratio is no longer a requirement requested by the state government. So that probably won't be provided in the coming budget. And I'm not sure it'll be a requirement under the financial statements as well. So I think they've determined that is a difficult ratio to put together and not very helpful.
Thanks. And the remainder of those will be on notice. So I will now go to items that are on the agenda. If there's anyone in the gallery who's got an item on the agenda they want to speak to, but they want to do that now, you're welcome to come up and do that now. Otherwise, I'll call you before your specific item. Okay, I'm going to call you before your specific items then. Thank you. If anyone, sorry, can't ask another question.
With respect, I'd like an answer to my second question, if that's possible, or to be.
It'll be taken on notice and given in the minutes. Thank you. Okay, so we'll just get through some housekeeping and then get to the agenda. Petitions, I don't believe there are any petitions, deputations, presentations. I'll move that we confirm the minutes of the last meeting of council, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Is there any elected member communication? No. All right, so let's go to the reports and recommendations from officers. So we'll start with the past present item, and we have Andrea Towns to speak on that one.
Thanks. Good evening. So the 32 next to me, I'm 34 past present, has been demolished, and there's a boundary wall, and a shed was about 25% of the boundary wall, and that came down last week. And because I've got a dog, I was very concerned about keeping her safe. So I communicated with the demolition company, the workers on site, the Dale Alcott, the owner, and because I had to go away for a few days, and I thought that I'd done a pretty good job, but while I was away, the person who was visiting my dog on site and making sure she was okay and fed, they took the temporary fence down and she escaped. So I get told there's a Fence Act, but I don't know how that's going to protect my dog because they flattened it and then they're going to go ahead with whatever they're doing, retaining walls. I don't really understand. So as far as I know, the whole fence is going at some point. And so I just wanted to officially make a statement that I think it should be mandatory that they communicate with such a major thing. Like my dog's registered with the council. I'm supposed to keep her safe in the boundary. and if they've got leave to make the changes that they're making, because they have to do retaining walls because they want to go higher than 1/2 metre, then I think they have to do a bit extra to keep my dogs safe. And I wasn't really sure what to do, so that's why I put this in today. And the other one is because I don't understand the process, is that I just want to request that the boundary line is properly surveyed, and when they do the works, that it's in the correct place. And that's, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. I'll see if the manager can make any comment about, I guess, the ability for the developer to perhaps take that into consideration.
Look, as the speakers mentioned, there is a Dividing Fence Act, which the city doesn't have jurisdiction over. We can certainly pass your concerns on to the owner and the applicant and ask them to remain in communication with you through that construction process. They will need to chat to you about the dividing fence regardless of whether they pay for it or how they construct it.
I understand.
That's okay. I understand. But they're not required to put up a temporary fence, but I'm sure if we communicate that you do have concerns, as you've mentioned, they will hopefully chat to you about that.
Okay, so I can't do too much back and forth, but I think what we're hearing is that we'll communicate with them as well and make sure that they do something in the interim while they're constructing the fence to keep your dog safe. Thank you. Do we have anyone else on that item from the proponent side? We don't, do we? Okay, so we'll go to the past present item. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Lorver moving that one, and is seconded by Councillor Graham. Do we have any speakers on this item? No? Councillor Sullivan, thanks.
Thank you. I originally was going to move a bunch of amendments, but as councillors will be aware, there's been a fair bit of communication between myself and the manager, and I thank her for that. My frustration, I guess, is that we're seeing 2 4-bedroom, relatively poorly designed houses shoehorned into a block where they leave almost no space for anything other than cars and tiny amounts of space for private recreation and possibly, potentially, maybe a tree. And it's not the type of development that we should be enduring these days, but unfortunately the R codes are still such that for this type of dwelling, they can pretty well build boundary to boundary and not really provide a hell of a lot of amenity. I was even more concerned that given that it's a split density code, that the requirement is really for a building of sustainability, and sustainability is not just insulation and keeping the sun out or keeping the sun in. It's also about the quality of the design, the livability, the whole way in which the project is arranged. And this one is clearly not arranged very well. I'm not sure there was a lot of intent in any of the thinking of the proponent in that regard. If you're going to build two 4-bedroom houses on what was originally a single house site, and expect to get a bonus to achieve that, I just think there has to be, at some stage in WA, there has to be a way to enforce a much better outcome than what we're seeing here. The applicant is trying to not even commit to doing the elements of the sustainability clause. So, for example, they don't want to do the rainwater tank or grey water. They just, because they haven't really left enough site to even do that. And so they're saying, oh, we don't want to do that. So obviously the conditions require them to do that, but they are the absolute bare minimum that we can achieve. I'm particularly worried that with all of the land that they had, that they're coming forward with a proposal where the only open space for the front house is in the front setback. And they haven't shown a fence yet that we can discern. And of course, they're going to come back later on and try and build a big wall around that open space. And then we're going to have an argument with the poor person that ends up buying that house or living in that house. But it won't be our fault. So frustrating. I just wanted to say that. I understand that the staff have had to follow the letter of the law in terms of the policies and the like. But it does rather suggest also that we need to do a bit more strategic planning to tighten up on those things. Quite frankly, I don't want to give a density bonus out when the community isn't actually getting a bonus. Thanks.
Councillor Williamson-Wong.
Thank you. I just want to second what Councillor Sullivan has said. I think it's a frustrating proposal that we're seeing, but it's also where we're at because of the legislation and policies that we're bound by. And if our intention is to encourage good quality density and increase the density in our city, which I think we all want to do, then looks like we're going to need to review some policies, because having single-story 4-bedroom houses squished into tiny lots with no open spaces feels a bit ridiculous.
Councillor Van Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to second Councillor Sullivan's comments as well. I feel exactly the same, very frustrating, and it's that we're bound by the R codes if this is the outcomes we're getting, but yeah, absolutely agree.
All right, councillors. It's probably a fairly general sentiment. However, if there's no further speakers, we'll go to a vote on this one. So all those in favour? Yep. And against? Councillor Thompson against, and that's carried. Okay, so that takes us to the second item, which is Rule Street number 1. And the speaker we have for that one is Justin Tremaine.
Thank you, Matt. I speak as owner of 1 Rule Street, DA that's on the agenda now. The design has been undertaken with 4 principles in mind. Firstly, respecting the heritage of the property, avoiding any overlooking issues, maximising open space, and obviously respecting the planning guidelines. Despite it only being 370 square metres and only 12 metres wide, the lot, we've managed to retain over 60% open space. The extension is not visible from the street, taking advantage of the lower rear elevation. Does not create any overlooking issues. In fact, the western elevation opening is screened to 1.6 metres in accordance with our codes. The northern elevation opening is set back by 6 metres on a 12 metre wide lot. And also the maximum height of 5.9 metres is actually taken from the lowest level on the lot, and overshadowing is well within guidelines. The height of the existing house exceeds the extensions, hence it's not visible from the street. And also the height of the neighbouring northern and southern houses exceed this, despite those southern houses being downslope at a lower level. And in fact, the city recently approved a southern lot extension with a height exceeding our lot, despite that lot being at downslope at a lower elevation. To address the southern neighbours' concerns, firstly, as the council's planning officer has confirmed, there's no overlooking issues. There's no overshadowing issues, with 17% being modelled, well within our code guidelines of 25%. And that overshadowing does not fall on any major openings. Due to an inconsistency in our site survey and the southern lot site survey, at our cost, we actually re-pegged the lot, which confirmed our site survey to be, in fact, correct, and which means that the city actually approved recently a DA on that southern lot with an incorrect survey and therefore incorrect setbacks. And then in respect to the building height and the southern boundary setback, as I said, at 5.9 metres, it does exceed the town planning scheme of 5.5 metres. However, where the scheme also allows for a 0.5 metre extension to 6 metres, where the lot elevation varies by more than 1 metre. Ours varies by 2.5 metres, which would therefore make the 5.9 metres compliant. The 5.9 metres is measured from the lowest point on the lot, and if it was taken from the natural ground level, it would be far below this, obviously. As I said, recently the southern lot was had a DA approved with a height limit that exceeds our proposed height, despite being a lower lot. There is no detrimental impact on the amenity of the neighbour, given there is no overshadowing issues. There's no detrimental impact on the heritage, given it is not visible from the street, and therefore we believe it should be qualify for the 0.5 metre allowance under the town planning scheme to 6 metres. And on the southern ground level boundary wall length, it's really the only material aspect that's not compliant. However, it's only a 2 metre extension to the existing house, and it's backed at a lower level given the split level design. And in fact, 3 metres of the existing boundary wall will be lowered as a result of this extension. Furthermore, the boundary wall will be lower than the boundary fence and therefore will not actually be visible to our neighbours at all, therefore no loss of amenity for them. And finally, it's made up of 3 different materials and therefore reduces any perceived bulk that wall would create. So it's clearly not a contentious design in any way, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Justin. Councillors, did anyone wish to ask any questions from the applicant? Nope. Okay. Do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Sullivan, seconded by Councillor Williamson-Wong. Did you wish to speak?
Only to note the absolute contrast between the previous item and this item. A very well crafted proposal, albeit in a very different environment. I would also say that I recall when the height requirements for North Fremantle came into the schemes, and there were a number of people in the community that were really pushing for very low heights. And the problem with the 5.5 metre height in the scheme is that it's fine on a flat block, but hardly anything in North Fremantle is. And as soon as you start having a slope on a block, and in some cases quite significant slopes, houses are always going to, and additions are always going to exceed that requirement, or they're going to be like little tiny rooms, each one stepping down a couple of steps every time it goes down the hill, which is not really the best way to live. So I certainly support what's been proposed.
Thank you. Councillors, anything further? No, we'll put this on to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. That's your decision tonight. Thank you. And we'll go to Rennie Crescent. Now, I don't think we've got anyone in the gallery for item 3 on Rennie Crescent, which is a bit disappointing. Nonetheless, I will ask for someone to move the officer's recommendation, Councillor Mofflin, and a seconded by Councillor Van Dawson. On the officer's recommendation then, Councillor Mofflin.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just speak briefly, saying, yeah, very much supportive of the officer's recommendation, and disappointed in the actions of the resident in full well knowing that what was being proposed wasn't considered suitable and had been in discussion, and went ahead and put this in place regardless. So I certainly can't support supporting a unauthorised addition.
Councillor Van Dawson, did you wish to add anything?
Not much to add, but I'll just second the comments of Councillor Mofflin. Thank you.
Yeah, not cool, basically, in a nutshell. All right, should we put this one to a vote? All right, all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's go to Thompson Road, where we do have a speaker, Rita Galipo.
Good evening. By way of introduction, my name is Rita Galipo and I'm the General Manager of Wild Bakery. Firstly, thank you to everyone for your careful consideration of Wild Bakery's proposal to create a small community-focused takeaway coffee and baked goods outlet on 94 Thompson Road in North Fremantle. In short, we stress, per our submitted management plan, this isn't aimed to be a high volume, large scale operation. This is a hole in the wall, takeaway, coffee focused and bread space with no food manufacturing on site. We have had so many voices of support from this style of offer. Mums, dads, people walking their dogs, those exercising. They are looking for simple takeaway coffee and baked goods in this area. We do not envisage to or desire to be a destination venue. Indeed, in the proposed space of 3.5 metres by 3.79 metres, we simply cannot cater to more people than those in the direct vicinity of this location. Our proposed trading hours are restricted to Wednesday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. We will not have food preparation on site. We envisage only having a maximum of 2 staff at any time. We're intentionally looking to create a small, simple, easy and convenient offer for the local community and nothing more. We simply are presenting an offer catering to what we have heard from the local community. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Councillors, did we have any questions for Rita? No? Okay. Did somebody want to move this officer's recommendation? Lots of people want to move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Thompson got his hand up for the first, and then that was seconded by Councillor Williamson Wong. Councillor Thompson.
Oh, just to say that I think it's a very welcome addition to that part of North Fremantle.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson Wong. Councillor Van Dawson.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I actually live around the corner from this, very excited, so strongly support this proposal. And I agree, it's not a destination venue where it's located. I'm quite confident it won't create any traffic impact issues or anything. And with the management plan and proposed operations, I feel like it will just service the locals there. And yeah, I hope you capture a lot. There's a whole Mosman Park community. I think you could draw down the path, and yeah, I hope you do well and get the approval. Thank you.
My only concern is where Ingrid's going to get her coffee on Monday and Tuesdays, but, you know, that's a small matter. No, I mean, I think this is a sweet little idea. I mean, I think North Freo is a series of islands cut off by roads, and it's actually really important that people can get to something in their local area, and the town centre is an area that can be quite inaccessible for people. So while they could go there for their bread and their coffee, this is actually a sweet thing for people right in that local vicinity. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously being a South Fremantle person, we have a few of these types of facilities, and they're great. And it's not a planning matter, to be fair. It's more of an operational matter. I very much encourage both the operator and the community that use it to try and steer away from the takeaway cups if you can. For example, there are people who sit outside a hole in the wall in the South Fremantle area who are sitting there like a normal cafe, but they're given a takeaway cup. They're not given a ceramic cup that gets washed, and there's no real encouragement for takeaway containers. So in a city that prides itself on that, I would encourage the operator to try a bit harder on that front.
Yeah. Councillor Williamson Wong.
Councillor Sullivan keeps inspiring thought this evening for me. I wanted to second what Councillor Sullivan is saying and also share that I think sometimes, it is very much the operator. It's not a planning consideration, but having worked in the hole-in-the-wall cafes myself, I have frequently just given customers keep cups. And I think I encourage that to happen continually.
Thanks, everyone. So we might put that one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous again. Great. Okay, that's taking us now to Quarry Street, number 75. The first speaker I have listed on this one is Graham Baumgarten. And I believe you had a document you wanted to hand up to staff to be distributed to elected members. Yep. Okay, we'll just come and get that. Thanks.
So I'm the neighbour to the proposal. I just handed the document around because I think the image supplied doesn't do the situation justice. It's an aerial shot. we're built into the hill, so it's a sloping block, of course, and the proposal's on the high side of our backyard. Their floor level would basically be eye level on our side, which you can see in the image, I suppose, that's being passed around. So the proposal will basically be 2 stories above us, coupled with a reduced setback, which is what the variation is tonight, will exaggerate the situation, basically. So it'll be obviously a tall wall in our backyard that'll block out a little bit of the blue sky and scenery, I suppose, making it a bit darker. As much as we love the neighbours, eventually they may not be there. So the proposal is a standalone building. Anyone can reside there. And we're a little bit concerned in the sense that we may just have new neighbours at any time that can rent the place or live there. And that also brings a question of parking, whether there's parking for anyone who might sublease the property if we have a new neighbour basically on our back doorstep. The other thought is there's also alternatives to building 2 stories. There's 3 other sides that can be extended on the proposal. The proposed building is also surrounded by land, so there's plenty of room. So I'm just questioning why the R codes are being changed, which have been basically set for our protection. And that's it.
Thank you. Were there any questions for Mr. Baumgarten? Okay, thank you. And the other speaker I have on this item is Paula Amaral. We'll bring those back to you.
Good evening. I understand my neighbour's anxiety on it, but I think that a lot of his worries are actually unfounded because, and I think the officer recommendation actually is very good because it looks at the site and really understands that the impact is not as he thinks it's going to be. And his objections actually do not comply with the Survey Strata Act on what grounds you can make objections. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Did any councillors have any questions for Paula? No? Okay. All right. So do I have someone to move the officer's recommendation for this one? Councillor Lorver? And the seconder? Councillor Archibald? All right. Did either of you wish to speak? No. I just wondered if we might get some officer comment on the sort of question about changing the R codes that Mr. Baumgarten, just a clarification, I guess, in terms of the R codes and this proposal.
Yeah, through the chair, because it is a residential development, the R codes apply, and there's 2 different streams that the R codes allow council to make a decision on. So there's deemed to comply, which is a tick the box, it's set back 1 metre from a boundary, etc. Or there is a design principle assessment. So that's what a lot of elements under this proposal have been assessed against. So it's less black and white, but it does assess the proposal's impact on neighbouring properties, the existing property, and the amenity for residents. So our assessment is that it meets those design principles and it provides a new home in an area that is permitted to have a new home.
Thanks. All right, councillors, any speakers on the item? Okay, well, we might put it to a vote. All those in... Oh, sorry, Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, similar to what I said in the first item, I mean, sometimes we're presented with proposals which we know probably could have been a better design, a more sympathetic design in the area and the like. But our job is to apply the rules as they stand, and as the manager said, the rules basically allow for this type of development. And if you look around that area, there are numerous situations where it's not the perfect outcome, but that's not, that unfortunately is not the way the planning system works. So I do sympathise with the neighbour. There probably would have been a better way to approach this to make everybody happy, but this one is a pass, and we're obliged to, as decision makers, to stick to the facts as they are, and the facts are it complies with the rules that are in the R code, not the deemed to comply bit, as the manager said, but certainly in the performance-based area.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. All right, I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. So that's your approval tonight. All right. That takes us to the end of the planning reports, apart from the planning information report. Are there any updates on any of these? Are these all still as they stand since we last? Yeah, they all look about the same. All right, so I'll ask for someone to move the planning information report. Councillor Sullivan, seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion or questions on this one? Oh, all right, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, this is going to take us then to the general reports. The essential lease terms for the Ferris wheel. Do we have a mover for the officer's recommendation here? Councillor Moughlin, seconded by Councillor Lang. Do we want to speak on this at all? Councillor Moughlin?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I suppose the Ferris wheel has become an iconic part of the Esplanade Park, and great to see that we are looking to progress further relationships with the operators, and the offering that they're proposing looks interesting compared to, an enhancement on what they have had in the past. I'd be really interested to see how it may work in terms of the additional uses that could exist with the new Ferris wheel, and particularly, having seen the number of kids' birthday parties in and around the Esplanade Park wanting to go on the Ferris wheel and using that as part of their destination experience, the Ferris wheel in a new form will most probably add great delight to kids as it goes forward too.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to put on the record that in our conversations with staff about this one, that I've requested that the area, the council's bit of the area in front of the Ferris wheel be looked at, and some consideration be given as to whether we need to upgrade our bit. The Ferris wheel are upgrading their bit, and the sand pit that's in front of it, which is partly due to the activity at the Ferris wheel, but also partly due to the fact that it's where the rail crossing is. It's a very intensively used area, and it's also an area where we had many moons ago ambitions for a building. So it's perfectly understandable why it's perhaps not been the highest priority in terms of doing something permanent. But I think for the Ferris wheel, as Councillor Moughlin was saying, for something that is so iconic, it would be a good idea, I think, for the council, the city, to look for some improvements in that space. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Lorber?
Yeah, just echo the comments from Councillor Moughlin and Councillor Sullivan. And I just really wanted to thank staff for providing all the additional information on this one here. It's a really great outcome, and achieving a lease rate higher than the market evaluation is something that's pretty spectacular. And then also, just seeing what might happen on this site as well as with the additional uses is pretty exciting. So excited to see it happen.
Thanks, Councillor Lorber. Any further comments, councillors? I mean, I'll probably just add that, absolutely welcome this, and it's kind of almost symptomatic in a good way of the general kind of sentiment in Fremantle of taking something that might have been a bit old and worn down and making a commitment to the long term by breathing new life into it. So I think there was mass panic when the dismantling began, but actually what we're seeing is a significant investment into the long-term future. So bring it on. All right, I'll put this one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Okay, DPLH Urban Greening Strategy Engagement. I have a mover for the officer's recommendation here. Councillor Williamson-Wong, and seconded by Councillor Lang. Councillor Williamson-Wong, did you wish to comment?
Just to say that it is very exciting that the state government is taking a lead on creating an overall urban greening strategy. We know that the state government is a big landholder, and for them to come forward and hopefully help, I guess, bring lots of the urban greening strategies that local councils, including ourselves, are undertaking together feels like an exciting time, and the officers have done a great job in pulling their responses together.
Agreed. Councillor Lang, did you wish to speak on this one? Were there any other speakers for this one? No. All right, we'll put this on to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Okay, and still in the trees, we will go to the response to the NOM. So a mover for that one, Councillor Lorver, the seconder. It's getting really confusing. I think it was Councillor Archibald first, so we'll go that way. Councillor Lorver, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to really thank staff again for the tremendous amount of work that went into this. You know, I was really, you know, I was kind of pleasantly surprised, I guess, in a way, because I didn't actually expect this to have any tangible outcomes from it, and it actually contains something that we can do right away. It was mostly to put a buffet of options before us to consider in the future, and it does that really, really well. And I was just really pleased to see that, you know, things like creating separate targets was supported, things about, you know, how we measure our canopy can be looked at, and all those changes will be debated by us as we review all these different policies that they fall under. So I'm excited to see this first step, and looking forward to seeing how far we want to go as a council to better protect tree canopy and grow new canopy. So it's great.
Thank you. Councillor Archibald, did you wish to add anything? All right, councillors, I know we've got a proposed amendment, so if there's no other speakers, we'll go to that.
Thank you.
Sullivan?
Just before I move the amendment, obviously, I guess comments that I've made in the past are very much along the lines that I don't really fancy prioritising a massive amount of assessment and measuring and baselining and all of those things. And I know that those things are important, but I think sometimes local government generally, I'm not going to pick on our staff, but just generally as an industry, we do tend to do most of the work inside the administration building, and I think we need to do more of the higher percentage of the work actually out in the field. Recently, the last couple of years, you know, our ambition was to plant a lot more trees. That's the community's ambition. We heard very strong messages from community to plant a lot more trees, and that was before the dreaded Polyphagous shot-hole borer came along. So now there is no greater urgency. The urgency that existed a few years ago when we first decided to plant a lot more trees has now been fully exacerbated by the potential for a lot of loss of trees as well. So what I want to do is move an amendment that just highlights that over the next couple of years that we try and rectify that capacity issue that we identified last year, so that we can genuinely look at planting more trees into the future. So I'll move my amendment, which is up on the screen.
Thanks. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the amendment then? Councillor Moughlin.
Yeah, just a question to staff. around this. I know there was some information presented to elected members a little time ago in regards to revising um, the schedule for planting over the years ahead, and it would be good to understand how this particular amendment aligns or otherwise with what was being proposed, and yeah, just get a general comment from officers in regards to the intent. And certainly from my perspective, I support the intent, but I'd just like to understand the feasibility and the like of being able to do so.
Thank you. Through the chair, there's I suppose, a couple of bits to that. The sort of identification of resource allocation through the forward financial plans are quite important. There is probably a 12 to 18 month lead time to actually get trees in the ground from the period of sort of thinking of planting a tree. There's a lot of work to do in terms of site identification, site preparation, tree species selection, engaging nurseries, getting the right species contract grown, and a range of other activities. So that's why we've put the target to increase the tree planting in the 2026 winter planting season, which is essentially 2 years from now, to allow that the time for all that sort of work to be undertaken, and also for council to sort of budget forward financially forward in the plan as well.
Yep, the CEO just wants to jump in there too.
Just through the chair, we do identify through this report and from the November 23 report to council that resources are quite tight in this spot, and we are expanding it. What we're actually hoping to do is also just keep shifting those resources to the elements we need at the time. So do all the planning now and then shift the resources to implementation and the like. So that is actually the intent, although we may need to increase some of the resources as we go as well.
Thanks. Councillor Moughlin, did you want to speak any further? Okay. So councillors, on the amendment. Well, if you speak, you might be closing.
Well, yes.
Councillor Graham would like to speak. So I'll go to Councillor Graham, then I will go to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I think most of it's been answered, and I understand the intent, but I am not overly wrapped in it. The city's had a tree planting program for as long as I can remember, and mostly as long as Councillor Thompson's been on council, and it's always worked. We have our discussions at the budget round of do we want to increase it? Do we want to decrease it? I think this year we've decreased it a bit for reasons the CEO just outlined. I'd prefer just let the officers run with this and see that they've been doing such a good job for all these years. I don't think elected members really should get involved with saying, oh, we want to get a few more trees up next year because of personal, a personal view. There's always going to be trees planted in Fremantle every year. There's close to 1,000 trees, I believe, planted. So there's no great, in my view, push to increase that. So I would prefer just to leave the recommendation as it is on page 88 and let the officers deal with it.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Councillor Sullivan, did you want to close now?
Particularly now, yes. The business as usual is exactly how Councillor Graham just described it. We wait till budget time and then we say, yeah, we'd like to plant some more trees, and then we throw, a figure like 1,000 trees at the staff, and they sort of walk away and go, well, how the hell are we going to do that? Because we haven't got them grown on, we haven't planned for where they should go, we don't have the capacity right here, right now, to shove them in the ground, bearing in mind that budget time is exactly at the same time as planting time. So it's a completely unreasonable approach to wait till budget time each year to say, how many trees shall we plant this year? The staff need clear, strategic intent from the council. Our job is to set the strategic intent, and their job is to hear that and to be able to find the capacity to do that. And if it takes 3 winters from this current winter that we're in now to get that increased capacity up and running, then we need to make that decision now. We, as a council, voted for a lot more trees to be planted than we are currently planting. We understand why, but we need to set a strategic imperative, a strategic intent, so that the staff can hear that and they can start planning for that, and they can come back to us over the next 18 months to 2 years to deliver that. Thank you.
All right, on the amendment, I'll go to a vote. All those in favour and against? Councillor Graham and against, so that's carried. So back to the item as amended. Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a very brief comment, just perhaps more for the benefit of any of the public who might be listening. This item and the previous item, to me, are somewhat related. There's been also the Walga tree policy model, the model tree policy that they've put out, and all of these things are in the mix now for how we might be able to progress better with the urban forest plan and any of our greening strategies into the future. We did reduce the number of trees we were planting in this year and next year, I believe. Yes, and part of that was because we have had very different climate outcomes over the last 12 months, to the point where we were watering 2 months earlier, if not, and we probably should have done it 3 months earlier than we used to. We've also had an incredibly long autumn. We do need to get good data about species that work well, species that perhaps don't work so well. In the mix of that, we've also got the polyphagus or polyphagus borer that I was educated about Greek pronunciation the other day by Councillor Sullivan. So we have that, which also may constrain some of the species that we will plant. So I think really it's interesting that the state government has come out with its urban greening strategy proposal. It's still in the public consultation phase, but I will be very interested to see what the state government does come up with in that proposal, because hopefully it will give us some real opportunity to do some interesting things in our city. But we also have the other area that we're also reviewing, Councillor Lorva's motion, but also behind that and around that has been an awful lot of work that the staff have been doing, which also relates back to their need for getting good quality data so we can make really good decisions. So I just wanted to make those comments because it may seem like it's just a report coming in, but really there is a lot of very good work that sits behind that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the state government's thoughts come in with this as well, because then we hopefully can set some really good frameworks for taking us into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Archibald. Councillors, if there's nothing further, I'll put this one to a vote. All right, all those in favour? And that's unanimous. Great. So that brings us to the adoption of the annual budget. Just noting additional officers' comments in the additional docs on page 3 regarding the public toilets, I believe. So do we have someone to move this item? Councillor Sullivan, seconded by Councillor Lorva. All right, councillors. I might just get the Director of City Business maybe to give us a little intro to this one.
Through the Mayor. It's a responsible, balanced budget with a focus on renewal of our existing assets. Amounts to $130 million, 110 of which is operating. There's a $19 million capital program. $14 million of that capital program is renewal, which is a really, really nice progression for that program. There was a 5.4% rate increase, recognising that we are balancing increasing costs at the moment, but also trying to continue to deliver a program of services to the community.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure to move the budget, and I want to thank all of the staff that have been involved in this. Obviously, some of us have been involved in way too many budgets, and they get the process to deliver them gets better every year, and this year I thought was particularly good, particularly easy to understand, particularly well structured, And so I want to thank all the staff that have been involved in that and the elected members. I also want to just, for the benefit of anybody that is still watching, point out just how exhaustive a process it is. As soon as elected members come back from their sort of summer break, the staff are already hitting the ground with a huge amount of information and conversation from every different manager area of the organisation about what their expectations and what the opportunities are, looking at the strategic plan, looking at the priorities, explaining, going through the options and the like. We meet so many times before we get to the night where we actually approve the budget. And sometimes we get to the point of approving the budget and there's no comment and the public don't see any of that conversation. So I just wanted to emphasise that actually there is a massive amount of work, both from, particularly from the staff, but also from elected members in framing a budget like this. And there's also a lot of give and take, a little bit of compromise, a little bit of sort of argy-bargy about what our priorities are. That's how it should be. That's what our job is to do, is to try and collectively, collegiately come together and set a budget that hopefully is the sort of budget that the community is really wanting to achieve. The last thing I would say is that we never set a budget in isolation of looking at future years as well. So someone mentioned tonight, the sort of 10-year plan. We have a 10-year plan. We also look at 4 years ahead as well. And we very actively think about where we need to get to in the medium and longer term. And while this budget is not perfect, particularly in the area, as we know, of raising the amount that we spend each year on capital projects, we have a very clear strategy in place to get us to the point where we know we should be. We can't do that quickly. It's a medium-term plan, but we're very much on track to be achieving that in the next few years. So I thank the staff for bringing us that because it's something that has eluded the council over the last probably 20 years, if not longer. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Councillors, other speakers? Councillor Moughlin.
Thanks. And yeah, I just want to add some additional points to what Councillor Sullivan said there as well, and fully supportive of all the comments that he made. But my observation this year and where we're going from a process perspective is that the budget provides us with a very coherent plan as to what we're trying to achieve and align to those long-term aspirations. And where I felt we've got to this year is, rather than the budget being a scurrying exercise and deciding what it is we need to do, it was a moment for reflection and say, are we achieving those long-term aspirations that we have? Is the work in the right direction? And where it is, let's continue. And where not, we have taken that moment to change directions or tact. And I suppose exceptionally pleased with the work that officers have done to enable us to get our heads around the work that we need to do as a council and where the efforts need to go. So massive congratulations, because I know it's not just the work that's come for preparation for an individual budget, but it's work that's happened over the last 2 to 3 years to support us to be in this position now. And I look forward to the next 12 months, particularly being a time which is ultimately preparing us for the next budget again. And it isn't a time where we then sit down and go, wow, what are we going to do? But it's really clear and we understand where we're going. So yeah, exceptionally happy. Had a conversation with a member of another local government the other evening, and to hear about their process for budget, I was proud to be a City of Fremantle councillor. We do have robust discussions and there is compromise, as Councillor Sullivan said, but we're all pulling in the same direction, and that direction which our community has set for us. So thank you everyone for the contribution.
Thanks, Councillor Mofflin, and I might follow on a bit from you because I had similar sentiments around, I find it interesting that we get sort of this pushback that we've got so many staff and what must they all be doing, and then we get the day-to-day interaction to see what everyone is doing, and not only do we answer questions from the public and interact through community engagement, but in the last year or so, how the organisation functions has fundamentally changed with the new strategic community plan, the corporate business plan, the budget coming out of that, the long-term financial plan coming forward, and then the reporting aligned to all of that. And that's actually a huge, huge piece of work. And what I see working in this building is a hell of a lot of people working so hard to try and meet all of the needs as well as deliver the stuff they have to deliver day to day. So there's a huge amount of corporate effort going on alongside the day-to-day of everyone's jobs. And things like the budget process then come in over the top of that. And I think, as Councillor Mofflin said, the fact that we get presented with so much information so early that we have a process where we can submit our own budget ideas and our own thoughts early on, and then we can work it through over a number of months. It's a huge amount of work for everyone, but particularly for the staff to enable that. As with all budgets, and particularly, when you have a local government the scale of ours, there is give and take. And, as someone who submitted 11 budget proposals, I was not surprised to see that not all of them were in here. I think maybe one might have cut through. But there is give and take, and I think all elected members feel that, and I think it's important that the community understands that even if we're not delivering something this year, it's still in our system. So we're looking at things over the next 4 years, and if we weren't able to deliver it in this budget, it's still on the list for consideration next year. The key things I wanted to kind of note, and perhaps I'll start this with a question and then come back to my comments, is asset renewal. Renewal. It's so important. We've been talking about it for years. You can't run a city like Fremantle without investing heavily in asset renewal. And, we look at other local governments who get a big shiny new thing, and that's nice for them. But actually, we've got really important old things that need a lot of love, and rightfully so. So I think the assertion that, we only do this if we, for example, sell Victoria Hall is incorrect. And I just wanted to confirm that the commitment to Town Hall is in the budget is not contingent actually on anything.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. The upgrades to the Town Hall are budgeted, and the sale of Victoria Hall is not a part of that.
Thanks. That was my understanding, and I think it's really important that the community understands that we do have a strong commitment to Town Hall and to making it really available for everyone to use and to being the best heritage asset that it can be. A couple of other things I just wanted to pull out here. Something like Hilton Park, I think in the past sometimes we've consulted a lot on projects and then we haven't been able to deliver them in a close time frame, and it's really good to see some of the items in Hilton Park coming out through this budget. So communities had a lot of input. There's a lot of aspirations for the area, but it's not like we stop and wait till we've got all the money in the bank to be able to deliver that. It's a really busy area, so things like lighting are really important down there. South Beach, it's good to see the barbecues and some of the other facilities down there. I have a slight concern based on previous experience that all of these things will be added to the project cost for the South Beach change rooms, much as we keep hearing about the King Square project. So I just want to reassure everyone that barbecues are a completely separate proposition, much as many of the things we do around Walyalup Court are completely separate to the project that was the King Square project. But it is really good once you've invested in a key new asset in an area to be able to go through and do things like make sure all the barbecues are working so that people have really fantastic experience down there. And finally, I just wanted to point out for anyone who missed it that there's a commitment to design and deliver public toilets in this budget in the CBD. This is something we hear about a lot, is that there's not 24/7 public toilets. I am slightly reminded of a book called Clochemel that became a TV series where I think it ended with the French army having to come into a small village because they got into such a dispute about where they placed their public toilets. We very much hope the placement of these public toilets won't result in the need for a military, peacekeeping force. But certainly we know that there are different demographics that need public toilets in the city. The 24/7 provision of a toilet down at Beach Street certainly meets the needs of people who are sleeping rough and maybe are, in need of that facility. And the longer term plan and design around how we deliver something adjacent to the Evan Davies building is also really important, and understanding that in a hospitality precinct such as we are, that it's really important those public toilet facilities are there. So I do want to just highlight that. I think it's really, it's been a long conversation. I think I remember a former councillor joking that if you ever want to get a group of elected members animated, introduce the topic of public toilets and you'll be there for hours. But it is really important that we deliver something this year, and it's now in the budget. So that was the thing I wanted to highlight there. But again, just thanks to all the staff, and yeah, as Councillor Moughlin said, looking forward to the next process. It just gets smoother every year, and it's really a great thing. Councillors, I didn't move this, so I wasn't closing. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Lorber?
Yeah, I think folks would know that if if I tend to disagree with something, I'm not shy about making comment or putting alternates forward. But I just wanted to say that this year's budget, I really feel like the process was done very, very well. Just echoing the comments by Councillor Moughlin and the Mayor, I won't reiterate all those words, but I just wanted to express my gratitude to the staff and to the fellow councillors for what we're putting forward tonight, because it does deliver on a lot of really important items. And again, I won't read the list that the mayor went through, but something like the town hall is incredibly important to our community. Toilets are incredibly important to our community, but also out in the suburbs, it's delivering on a long-standing commitment to the folks at Samson Park to start really making that place shine a little bit. So it does have a lot of good in this budget, as everyone knows. And no, it doesn't have everything that I put forward or anything that everything that anyone put forward in there, but I think it is a great foundation for us to look at in the future years and to see how we can continue doing the things that we need to do. So just want to thank everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Lorber. Councillor Sullivan, I'm assuming you don't want to close, so I might put this one to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Excellent. We have no motions of which previous notice has been given, nor urgent business, late items or confidential business. So amazingly, that brings the meeting to a close at 7:33. Thank you.